All right, so let's let's talk about the hunter cards for the Great Dark Beyond. We got 10 of these as well, similar to Priest, and should be the same as everything else as well. So let's just get into it. First off here, we've got Alien Encounters. This is a 5 mana spell. No class, not class, no tag on it, like spell school, rather. But it is 5 mana to summon 2/5 beasts with taunt. Costs 1 less for each card you've discovered this game. Now that actually, we should probably talk about Exarch Niall to talk about that, because I think with Exarch Niall, this will actually be relatively easy to proc. But I do want to put my thoughts about Exarch Niall into focus a little bit as well. So, if Exarch Niall has common ways to get out, and then you also are able to put a bunch of discovers in your deck, irrelevant of that, this is pretty fine. It is more control-y. You know, Hunter generally leans towards being a little bit more aggressive on board, so putting down 2/5 taunts is not really part of the general game plan, but if Hunter slows down this expansion, then why not play Alien Encounters just to, you know, like if you can get this all the way down to 0, it's great to get, you know, good minions out of a spell for free, right? It doesn't cycle, so the question really is, you know, by the time that you're actually playing this on 0, do you really care enough? Like, does it even affect the board enough to be like a good top deck or whatever, right? So I don't know. I don't think that this is spectacular. I think that it's pretty decent, and if Hunter plays really slowly, then it might see play, but it's not that great to me personally. I don't know that it'll be a big player. Exarch Niall. This seems like a why would you not play it kind of card. 3 mana, 3/4, Battlecry, replace your hero power with tracking. Tracking being discover a card from your deck. And I believe, yeah, it also costs 1 instead of 2. Someone else that I watch called this better Warlock hero power. I would agree with that. The big disadvantage to Exarch Niall, and it's actually, if you look all the way back to the Grand Tournament, the same issue that, I don't even remember her name, the 6 mana replace your starting hero power with a upgraded one. It's really just consistency, right? Like, you can mulligan to try and always get Exarch Niall into your hand at the start. But if you don't get it, I mean, it's always possible that she'll just be like card 27 out of a 30 card deck. And that feels really bad when you put your entire game plan around, oh, I'm going to be discovering every turn, right? So, if there's a way to tutor this card out somehow, it's pretty good. And if there isn't, then it's not. Now, granted, actually, this is a Draenei, and the neutral pool, let's go back up here, and let me just look at this for a second. Great Dark Beyond, was it a neutral Draenei that had, oh crap. Was it a neutral Draenei that was like, draw another Draenei? Oh, I'm looking at it in the wrong order as well. Hold on, let me sort by low to high, because I think it was. Get a copy of the last Draenei you played, the next Draenei you play. Is there any of these that bring out another Draenei? There's get 3 random temporary ones. No, not as far as I can see here. I might just be missing it. I'm trying to read through these quickly. So, it doesn't feel that good to me. Oh, here we go. Draw a Draenei. Spellburst. So if you run 2 of this, and your only other Draenei is Exarch Niall, you got a pretty good chance of being able to get Exarch Niall out. That's discover... No, draw a Draenei. Okay, so yeah. If you run 2 of that, you got a good chance you get the other Draenei first, and then you get Exarch Niall the turn after that, right? So 3 in a deck as opposed to 1 makes this a lot better, and therefore more reliable to actually play around. In that case, I could see it seeing play. It does rely on the ability to get it out on turn 3, I think, because if you're putting your entire deck's game plan around discovering, you want to make sure that you can actually do that. But yeah, pretty good card then. And you'll see as well, a lot of the other cards for Hunter have Discover Synergy, which, you know, is interesting. It's we'll see if that actually becomes an archetype, I guess. Next up, though, we got Gorm the World Eater. This is a 3-mana 12/12. Dormant for 5 turns. At the end of your turn, destroy the minion to the right of this to awaken 1 turn sooner. And it's a beast. Now, I was trying to think this through in my head before I actually started recording, because if I understand correctly, this is still going to be 3 turns, right? Because if it destroys on turn 1, it goes from 5 to 3, because at the end of the turn, it's going down by 1 for the destroy, and then another 1 for the end of your turn. On the second turn, it goes down by another 2, assuming that you put another minion down there to destroy. And then it's still at 1 on your third turn. And it still needs to go through 1 more turn to be not dormant. So that's a little bit of a hard sell, because you are dropping this potentially on turn 3. And it's just doing nothing for you, right? Now, you could say that it synergizes well with a Death Rattle package for Hunter, but I don't know that you ever want to be dropping something like, okay, in a best case scenario, you drop extraterrestrial egg on 2, let's just say, right? Or potentially biopod or whatever else. You know, something that you want to get the death rattle. Extraterrestrial egg is probably the best one to drop on 2 if you're going to drop this on 3, because you put this down, next turn you put down Gorm the World Eater, it devours this, turns it into a 3/5 beast that immediately attacks one of your enemy's minions. But if you're doing that combo for the second and third turn of the game, like on the second turn of the game rather, you're doing nothing because you're just playing this stupid egg. Which, I guess it just depends on the speed of the game during this expansion, right? Like if people are playing extreme aggro and you're dropping an egg on turn 2, on turn 3 you're in pretty good shape. However, no, that's not that big of a deal. You could theoretically put another death rattle in between Gorm and your new hatched egg thing. Yeah, I don't know. I think this has the potential to be good depending on how many low-cost death rattles that you actually want to activate, irrelevant of the stats on the minion that, you know, you're actually dropping. So if there's a lot of eggs that you can drop that you want to hatch, you can use Gorm to make that happen. But I could see this one going either way. There's a lot of cards that have been printed that are, you know, some form of dormant that never see play, just because something not doing anything for 3 turns is not really all that ideal. But I mean, then there's the Demon Hunter dormant guy that, like, every turn does 3 damage to everything on your opponent's side, and that one obviously does see play. So yeah, it's a toss-up. This one's interesting. I don't know that it's that good, but it's interesting. Next up, we got Parallax Cannon. This is a 3-mana 2/3 weapon for Hunter, and it has +2 attack if you've discovered this turn, and a spell burst. Your hero is immune this turn. So the spell burst is a one-time. The +2 attack is every time that you're able to activate that effect. So assuming that you dropped Exarch Niall on turn 3, you could drop this on turn 4, use your hero power, and you've got a 4-mana 4/3 weapon. which is pretty decent. I'd say that on turn 4... On turn 4, being able to deal 4 damage isn't bad. And then going forward, you can always activate the spell burst to make your hero immune. The fact that it's a spell burst makes it a little bit more awkward to play around, I would say. Because in theory, you might need to activate that when you don't need it, if you need to use another spell. I mean, if Exarch Nael is good enough that you can consistently drop it, then why would you not want to use Parallax Cannon for board control? This leans towards a control-y type of hunter deck as well, so, you know, it's not bad in that scenario. Having the ability, like, if you can consistently use the spell burst when you want to, as opposed to when you need to drop a spell, it's even better, because theoretically you can trade up. Like, if your opponent has like a 6/4, you can hit it and not even have to worry about the damage you're taking. So yeah, I think this is pretty decent. Next up, we got Specimen Claw. This is a starship piece. It's a 3-mana 2/6, and after your opponent plays a minion, attack it. Now, does the starship has the stats and effects? Okay, so obviously this is kind of nice. It'd be really good to play on turn 2. On turn 3, it's still not bad. It leans heavily anti-aggro, because if your opponent's playing a bunch of 1/1s and you're able to just attack every one of them as they drop, then you get a ton of value out of this. In addition, when you get your starship after this, it gains this effect, so then it's also going to attack every one of your opponent's minions as they drop, which can be a positive and a negative, right? Like, if your starship ends up being like an 8/8 or something like that, I mean, your starship's probably going to have more health than that if you're dropping this, but presuming that it's somewhere around there, you know, it could be negative. Well, one thing, obviously, is like if your opponent plays a poisonous, then you've just like screwed your starship by playing this. But that probably doesn't happen all that often. It's not like super common to play poisons. I mean, I think Shaman runs like a Murloc that's poisonous at this point, but it's not like a super common effect, so I don't think that's super worth talking about. But I mean, you could still kind of do a lot of damage to your opponent's thing, like starship, just by playing high attack, low health minions or whatever into this. Still, I think that it's pretty good. I mean, if your opponent's wasting their turn just like making your starship attack into something like this, then that's pretty good for you. You've basically locked down their board anyways. So that, you know, I think this sees play if there's more cards as well for Hunter that you want to build a starship with. Next up, we got Biopod. This is another starship piece, so it goes along well with the other one potentially. 2 mana, 2/2, Death Rattle, deal damage equal to this minion's attack to a random enemy. So with this, it's dealing 2 damage to a random enemy after it dies. That could be pretty good for controlling the board. However, because it's a random enemy and not a random enemy minion, that means that you can't consistently rely on this. Like, let's say that your opponent has 2 2/2s and it's your turn 3, so you're actually like attacking with this. You can't rely on this to attack into one of them and then kill the other one. It's just as likely it'll hit the opponent's face, which leans aggro a little bit more. You know, if you're able to consistently keep the board locked down and then you're able to use this to just hit the opponent's face, then that does some decent damage. If you can make your starships attack really high, and then, you know, you've basically got like a ticking time bomb for your opponent. But if they play a lot of minions, then it's not reliable enough to hit their face, so you got the opposite problem. So is this good? I guess if you run 2 of this, does it also pass the Death Rattle on twice? Like, does your starship end up dealing its attack damage to 2 random enemy minions? I would assume that it does. And if that's the case, then it's better as well. But not, like, game-breaking still. If there's a way to put like swipe or something, like, you know, to clear the enemy board consistently enough that you can actually make the death rattle hit the opponent, I could see this being extremely good. But by the time that you want your starship to actually go out, you probably don't care that much about hitting the opponent's minions. Hold on 1 second. Alright, we're going to continue on here. Next up, we've got Detailed Notes. This is a 2-mana spell. Discover a beast that costs 5 or more. Reduce its cost by 2. What's the beast pool looking like in Standard right now? Let's see here. That costs 5 or more, so we're looking at anything from this down. And we're reducing the cost by 2. Getting one Amalgam Band is pretty nice. Getting Thunderbringer is depends on your deck, probably inconsequential. Amplified Elec at 8 instead of 10 could be alright. I mean, the minion pool that it's drawing from is low enough that you could have some consistency in what you end up getting. Probably something like Light Fused Mana Saber is like one of the better options to get. Beached Whale's alright as well. It's interesting. I don't think that this is bad because mana cheating is generally pretty good. But, you know, the range that you're dealing with as well is pretty high, and you're not actually mana cheating. Like, if you play this and then play the minion, you've just paid full cost for it. So in that case, the only thing that it really does for you is enable spell bursts and other, you know, spell-based effects, or maybe combo, but I don't think there's any combo options for Hunter. I don't think this is that good, personally. I don't think that it sees that much play, but the best thing about it, I guess, then, is that it enables you to, you know, kind of pivot. If your opponent's playing something specific, you could hope that you get a good discover off of this. Like, if your opponent's playing heavy aggro, maybe you drop a Beached Whale, or Amplified Elec, or whatever, right? But, doesn't seem that great to me. Extraterrestrial Egg, we already talked about this a little bit, but I'll go into detail a little bit more. It's a 2-mana 0/2 Death Rattle. Summon a 3/5 beast that attacks the lowest health enemy. I think this is really good. If you are able to get this and the World Eater in your hand on turn 2 and 3 respectively, then it's a super solid combo. Having a 3/5 beast that immediately attacks into something that it's probably going to kill is very nice. And probably by that point in the game, it's also not just attacking and then dying. Like, worst case scenario, it's probably attacking into like a 4/1, which means that it still sticks on the board after that. And in a best case scenario, it's attacking like a 1/1, so you still have a 3/4 on the board after that, right? The biggest issue is consistency. If there's more ways to proc it, then it's way better, obviously. And actually, if we look at Laser Barrage, that's another way that you could potentially kill it, although it doesn't super fit into what you want to do here. That would then be 4 mana for a 3/5 that attacks, so that's not super good. But yeah, if there's other simple ways to proc your death rattles and stuff like that, then this becomes way better. So yeah, I could definitely see this seeing play. Next up is Laser Barrage. We just talked a little bit about this. 2 mana, deal 3 damage to a minion. If you're building a starship, also damage its neighbors. This leans again towards a more control-y style of, you know, deck for Hunter. However, even in aggro, for 2 mana, being able to clear 9 health worth of minions on your opponent's board, if it's lined up perfectly, is super, super nice. And then even just 2 mana deal 3 damage is consistent with like Frostbolt, so it's not bad. So yeah, I see this seeing a decent amount of play. I think that this definitely if you're building a starship, why wouldn't you put this in your deck? Because, like, the value is insane. But even in a more simplified, like, you know, do I just use this to kill a 2/3 on turn 2? Depending on what it is, and if it's going to be, like, majorly an issue, that's, why wouldn't you, right? So, pretty decent overall, I would say. And last up, we got Rangari Scout. This is a 1-mana 1/2 Draenei. And the effect is after you discover a card, get a copy of it. So, obvious synergy with Exarch, the Exarch up here, whatever the heck her name is, Niall, who's also a Draenei. Of note, though, the synergy for Draenei doesn't go at all with Velen in this expansion for Hunter, so you're probably not going to run a Draenei-based deck. Which is actually kind of good for Niall, though, when you really think about it, right? I guess the big question, though, is if you're doing the thing that I was talking about where you're tutoring out your Niall, you would never want to then run Rangari Scouts additionally in your deck because you're reducing the pool that you're pulling from, or you're increasing the pool, actually, that you're pulling from. Like, you wouldn't want to drop the, you know, get a random Draenei from your deck if you also have Rangari Scouts in your deck when you want to pull out Niall, right? So, in that case, I don't know if this would see play, right? Even if you're running like a deck that runs a lot of other Discovers, it's up in the air a little bit. Because I really think if you're trying to do a fully Discover-based deck, you want to run 2 of the Tutor, 1 of Exarch Niall, and no other Draenei. So in that case, I don't think it's that good. But then again, if you end up, you know, going to the dream world and you get Exarch Niall on the board on turn 3 and you're just able to drop this on turn 4, it's super nice, right? But yeah, like, are we dreaming or are we talking about reality? And in reality, I think that it's too much to ask for to consistently get Niall on turn 3 if you're diluting your pool with other Draenei. Unless there's additional ways to tutor out, you know, like, if there's a discover a minion from your deck card that's available that I'm just not thinking of because the pool of cards in Standard is pretty big, that adds to consistency enough that you probably could run Niall and Rangari Scout. But yeah, I lean towards it not being that good because of consistency. Anyways, that's all the Hunter cards for this expansion. There's kind of like 2 different archetypes that they're going with here, being, I think, like a more control-y thing with Gorm the World Eater, Extraterrestrial Egg, and the Starship, and then a more discovery-based thing with Niall, Rangari Scout, I guess Detailed Notes. Actually, of note, it's worth saying that Detailed Notes is better with Rangari Scout and, you know, stuff like that. I'm interested more this expansion in whatever the Discovered deck is going to be. Because, like, if you can consistently turn your hero power into tracking on turn 3, that is really strong and therefore, like, really fun to play, probably. But if it's not consistent enough, then I think that it's just a bad deck. Anyways, that's all my thoughts on this one, and look forward to more videos about this in the future. Oh, and let me know if there's anything that I said that you think is wrong, or, you know, if I missed something or whatever else. Have a good one.